Hello everyone and welcome back to my kitchen. This year has been really tough on a lot of us, so today I'm going to show you how to prepare some delicious tamales with a $20 budget. And believe me, they're just as delicious as the traditional tamales. So let's get started with this recipe. But first we're going to go over the ingredients. And if you missed some of those ingredients, I'm also going to list them in the description below. Or you can find the full recipe with step-by-step instructions on our website. Since this recipe is a little quicker to prepare than the traditional tamales, we're gonna start by separating the corn husks. And as we're separating, if you find any pieces of corn silk or any type of debris, you can remove it. Since we're only making about 2 dozen, we're gonna separate about 30 hojas. That's a little bit more than we're gonna need, but you always wanna have a little bit extra and not enough. Now the hojas that are small like this, you can't make a tamal out of this one because they're too small. You can either stack them together or you can set them aside to cover the tamales when we steam them. So I'm gonna soak them as well too, so I'm gonna throw them in there. Some of them come pretty clean already, but some of them you do have to remove a little bit of debris. And these kind of smell like vinegar, so I'm assuming they were already disinfected, which is great because now we just have to soak them so they can become nice and pliable, and that's gonna make it so much easier to wrap the tamales. I'm probably gonna soak a little bit more because what if we have more of the meat and the masa? We can make extra tamales. Today we're only gonna do the 2 pounds of ground beef, so we'll see how many tamales we can get out of the 2 pounds. I lost count. How many is that? It's better to have more than...
The more the merrier.
The more the merrier. If you have extra and you don't use them all, you can set them out to dry and then put them away if you don't use them all. Now to soak them, I'm gonna add hot water. I heated up some water in my tea kettle. So I'm just gonna pour it over the hojas. Okay, so now, since this was really hot, I'm not gonna put my hand in there because I don't wanna burn my hands, but I do wanna place a heavy object over the hojas, that way they can sink into the water. I'm gonna use the top of my molcajete, which is pretty heavy, so it's gonna sink them down. This is my latest addition to my molcajetes, a pumpkin molcajete, just in time for the holidays. So we're just gonna leave it right there, and we're gonna leave them soaking while we prepare the meat and the other ingredients. To prepare the sauce for the meat, I'm gonna boil about 5 to 6 chile guajillos. These are fairly big, so I'm only gonna use about 5. Well, 4 large ones and then a small one. And these I already removed the stems and the seeds. I also rinsed them. For those of you that say I don't rinse my peppers, I did rinse them and patted them dry and then removed the stem and the seeds. So now I'm gonna add them into the water. And to add a little bit of heat to this recipe, I'm also gonna add a few chiles de árbol. Now these are completely optional. If you don't like it too spicy, you can leave these out completely. But since we like our food a little bit spicy, we're gonna add about 6 or 7 chiles de árbol. Now I'm gonna take this over to the stove and bring this to a boil. And once it begins to boil, we're gonna turn off the burner, cover it, and we're gonna leave them soaking in the hot water for about 10 minutes or until they're nice and pliable. Before we begin to cook the meat, we're gonna dice half an onion, 3 garlic cloves, 2 potatoes, and 1 tomato. We wanna have everything ready because the meat process is pretty quick, so you wanna have everything on hand so you can just add the ingredients as you go. We're gonna start by peeling 2 potatoes. I'm using russet potatoes, but you can use a potato of your choice. One of my favorite potatoes is Yukon Gold, but those are very expensive as well as everything else. So I'm using russet potatoes because they were on sale. So now the onion. Now the garlic. The peppers are boiling, so I'm going to turn off the burner. And we're just going to leave them soaking in the water. Okay, more of the tomato. I was going to add carrots, but I forgot to grab some, to be honest. And you can also add any other vegetables that you like. You can add cheese, jalapenos to make it spicy instead of the chiles de árbol. You can make it as unique to your taste as you'd like, because not everyone's taste is the same. You can also substitute the meat for ground turkey, ground chicken, and make some chicken or turkey tamales. We have all our veggies chopped. I'm gonna scoot them over to the side so I can dice the potato. And these we're just gonna dice them into small pieces. You don't want them too big because then it'll be hard to close your tamales. Since I'm gonna use meat that is 93% lean, I am gonna add a little bit of olive oil to the pan before I add in the meat. But first, I'm gonna heat it up a little bit. And then we're gonna add in the meat. Break it down. And then I'm gonna season with salt and pepper. This is sea salt. And while we're browning the meat, I'm gonna blend the peppers that have been soaking in the hot water. The peppers, I drained out the hot water. And I'm gonna blend them with 1 cup of beef broth or chicken broth. We're gonna save this because we are gonna need it for the masa. Close it up and blend these in. Close it up and blend the peppers. Now that we no longer see any of the red in the meat, at this point we're gonna add in the tomato, onion, and garlic. Cook for about 5 minutes with the meat, and then we're gonna add the rest of the ingredients. At this point, I'm gonna add the potatoes before we add in the sauce. Mix those in. But as you can see, the sauce is really nice and smooth, so I'm not gonna strain it. I'm just gonna add it directly into the pan. It's completely up to you if you wanna strain it or not. Add that in there as well. And we're gonna mix it in. And this is already starting to smell so good. Okay, turn it down just a little bit. Well, we add the cumin and oregano. I'm gonna crush it with my fingers. There we go. And at this point, you can also taste it. And if it needs more salt or black pepper, you can adjust it to your taste. Lastly, we're gonna mix in the corn. I'm using 1 cup of corn and 1 cup of peas. You can add more or less, or you can leave them out as well, depending on your preference or your taste. Mix those in. And don't worry too much if the potatoes aren't completely cooked, because so they'll continue to cook when we make the tamales. At this point, the meat is ready. So now we're going to move on to the preparation of the masa. which is super easy. So last year, when I was making my big batch of tamales, I ran out of masa. So I had to make more masa, and I did it in a way that you wouldn't traditionally make it, but it came out so perfect that I think from now on, that's the way that I'm gonna make my masa. And today I'm gonna make it that way as well because it's so easy and it came out super delicious. So this is how we're gonna start. In a medium pot, we're gonna add 4 cups of chicken broth, water, or beef broth. You can also use vegetable broth if you'd like. Add 4 cups. Turn on the burner as well. Okay. And we are going to add 2 cubes of chicken bouillon to add more flavor. You can also use salt. We're gonna add the manteca into the chicken broth. I'm gonna add about 1 tablespoon of chili powder. This is guajillo powder, New Mexico chili powder, which is gonna add a lot of color to the masa. As soon as the manteca is melted, we're gonna turn it off. You see the color? It's already turning like a red color, and I only used 1 tablespoon. You don't want this to reach a boiling point. As soon as most of the manteca is melted, it's gonna continue to melt with the heat of the broth. So we're gonna set this aside and we're gonna move it over so we can begin to mix the masa. To a large bowl, we're gonna add exactly 8 cups of masa, maseca. You can use whichever brand you prefer. And we're gonna mix in 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 1 tablespoon of baking soda, which helps the tamales to be nice and fluffy, and about a teaspoon of salt. Okay, and we're gonna mix these ingredients. Now to mix the masa, I'm gonna use my handy spoon that's a little bit old, but it's very reliable because it's very strong and it hasn't broken on me yet. So we're gonna use this one to mix in the manteca and the broth. I'm gonna mix it first. And then I'm gonna add half of the broth to start out. About half right there. And we're gonna mix. Now, if you wanna make your own manteca at home, I do have a video that you can reference to on how to make your own manteca at home. At the same time, you make some delicious chicharrones to enjoy with other recipes or just by themselves. And let's add the rest of it because it's okay. Gonna mix that in and just add it a little bit at a time because just to make sure you don't add too much of the broth and the manteca. And as you can see, it absorbs it pretty quickly, so we probably are gonna need a little bit more than 4 cups of broth. A little bit more, just about 1 more cup. That in. So in total, we used 8 cups of broth for the preparation of the sauce and the masa. Okay, the masa, with the help of my husband, we got the masa done. And as you can see, it's nice and smooth and it doesn't stick to the spoon. So that's a great indicator to let you know that the masa is ready. So now we're gonna move on to the next step and begin to assemble the tamales. But first we're gonna arrange everything within reach so we can have everything within our reach to make the process a little bit faster. Okay, the hojas I removed about 10 minutes ago so all of the water can drain out. As you can see, they're nice and pliable now, so it's gonna make it so much easier to fold. So let's begin to prepare the tamales. Those right there. And we're gonna take an hoja, and the hojas have two sides, one that it's rough and one that is smoother. This is the rougher part and this is the smoother side. So you're gonna want to add the masa to the smoother side. I'm gonna take a spoonful, probably about 2 spoonfuls of the masa, and we're gonna place it right in the middle. Spread it out over the bottom part of the hoja. And as you can see, it's super easy to spread. The masa came out so good. So that was about 2 spoonfuls. And then we're gonna add the beef. Now when you add the beef, you can also add cheese if you like, or you can just add the beef. It's completely up to you. Go. And we're gonna fold over one side and then the other side. And then the tip, we're gonna fold it in like that. And we're just gonna kind of close it. The bottom part of the masa seals it. Now this next step is completely optional, but I like to wrap them in wax paper. These are deli wraps that I found at the Cardenas market. You can find those in your Mexican grocery store when it's tamale season, or you can order them online as well. So we're gonna wrap it. By wrapping it, it's not only gonna keep the tamal nice and moist, but it's also gonna help it cook a little bit faster. So we're gonna close it. And the other thing is, like when you're cooking your tamales, nothing's gonna spill out of the tamales because it's wrapped in the wax paper. And to hold it closed, just add a little bit of water to the end and just fold it close like that. And as we're making them, we're just gonna place them on a cookie sheet and continue with the rest of the tamales. And let me show you something here. This is the masa that we made. And as you can see, when you fold it in, it doesn't stick to the hoja at all. I am so in love with this masa. It comes out so perfect and it doesn't take as long to make as the traditional masa. But if you want to make them the traditional way, making the masa the way that you're used to, you can go ahead and do that. But you might want to give this one a try because it might become one of your favorite too. Good. The meat. And we're gonna fold over one side. The masa on the hoja of the tamal helps it to close. And just kind of pat it down. Fold over the end and pinch it close. And then we wrap it in the wax paper. Now that we're done making the tamales, we are going to put them in the steamer. And since we only made a small amount, I'm gonna use the smaller steamer to steam them. I already filled it up with water. I didn't go past the line. So I'm gonna put in the liner. And then we're gonna arrange the tamales into the pot. Now normally when I use the larger steamer, I place them standing up like this, but since they're wrapped, I'm just gonna place them like that and then just go over it. Okay, so that's, you don't want to fill it up too much. You want to make sure the lid closes all the way. We're going to leave it just like this, and we're going to close it, and we're going to steam these for about an hour to an hour and a half. After an hour and 15 minutes of cooking time, I removed 2 of the tamales and allowed them to cool down for at least 10 minutes. Before you remove the husk, you must let them cool down for at least 10 minutes, because if you remove the husk right after removing them from the steamer, the masa is still going to feel a little bit soft, giving you the impression that the tamales are not completely done. You want to give them those 10 minutes to cool down so the masa can set, and then dig into your delicious tamales. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure to subscribe before you leave so you don't miss out on future recipes. And I'll see you in the next video.